Welcome into the DGD Podcast. If you're wondering, it's Christmas Eve, and I said that we weren't doing another show until after the Christmas week. But
I forgot to tell you.
Yeah. I lied!
Sorry, I had to pay homage there. But no, decided to do something, right? We want to talk about the first round playoff games. 4 games, all home games. First things first, Dan, Kobe, welcome in. How are y'all?
Good, man. Glad to be here.
Oh yeah, just living the dream. Christmas coming around the corner.
That's yeah, for sure. Chris Kringle's making his rounds, getting ready to at least. So for the kids, make sure you're getting ready for that.
Respect to the man. The amount of milk he is about to drink, unfathomable.
Insane.
Definitely not lactose intolerant. No boy.
Oh, I thought we just lost him.
Sorry about that, boys. Anyways, I want to get y'all's opinions on this. All right, the first 4 home games are in the books. What are y'all's thoughts on them overall?
All right. Just generally, I think it's cool that the games were at home and that they had the ability to play those games on campus. I think that was a cool element. However, the games were not very entertaining or competitive. So there's that. But, cool idea, just didn't pan out with the way that they decided to pair up the teams. Kobe, what you got?
Yeah, I think super cool. Again, like you're saying, it's only 1 year, so it's kind of hard. Obviously, no upsets. I think if there had been a single upset, I would be singing kind of a completely different tune at this point. But I think super cool they were on campus. Obviously, this year, a lot of Big Ten schools got to host. Very cold, very different weather. And they got to host teams from the South that I really thought impacted that game, especially the Penn State game. You play a team from Dallas that's not used to it being over, under maybe like 55. So it was interesting. I wish one of the games had kind of lived up to the hype, but I think we all kind of knew that Indiana was a lackluster team, and we know that SMU maybe not the dominant team they were painted out to be. I just really think that Texas kind of handled business, and I think going forward, maybe Ohio State did too, which was very surprising, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna break down each of these 4 of them, but overall, to me, I just thought it was, to me, bad football. A lot of blowouts. All right, there's a lot of people that were saying Indiana, SMU shouldn't have been in, and you're seeing that after everything's played out. But to be fair, it's the teams that wanted to be in but couldn't be in because they didn't do the job during the regular season that was yapping at it the most. But let's be honest, we knew that Indiana hadn't played nobody, and that showed. But at the same time, the home field advantage really, to me, stood to be a true factor in the games, right? Let's see. Do y'all want to start with Penn State, SMU? To me, I felt like that home field advantage, even at a noon game, was probably the most intimidating for the opposing opponent. Would y'all agree, or is there another game that y'all saw?
I think it was the most drastically different for the team that was playing in it. I think that would be what I would say. I would say that, they talked about the SMU plays in front of a home crowd of roughly 35,000 people. They play in Dallas. They play where it's warm. They play where they're able to do a lot of things. And in the course of their season, even this year in the ACC, they didn't play on the road at a stadium that large. You're talking about over 100,000 people. There wasn't an empty seat in the house. Everybody's wearing white. It's single digits on the thermometer, and there's 20-mile-an-hour wind gusts. And you're also playing the biggest game of possibly your school's existence, besides maybe I think they won an Addy back when they were doing all the illegal stuff in the prime pony days. But, in my lifetime, in probably either of your lifetimes, the biggest game. And to do that in that kind of environment, I think it showed, and it kind of showed that once things didn't go their way early, they could never really get back in front of it.
I think it's fair to say that SMU was the most uncomfortable team out of all of them in the first round. I think that's a great point by Kobe right there. Is with the weather, the elements, they were extremely uncomfortable. I think out of all the games, Indiana was the most outmatched. SMU had talent, but they just didn't execute. So you can go a million different ways, but yeah, I agree. It's just it was tough sledding for SMU from the very beginning, and they could not handle the conditions, and it showed. They looked as bad as any team could possibly look in a football game.
Oh, it was sad. It was really sad to watch. Just watching two pick sixes, I think. And was it the first quarter or first half at least? Jennings threw 3 picks, 2 of them pick sixes, and really, it wasn't even Penn State being dominant, more so than SMU looking like complete ass. Like it was bad, especially to start the game, because Penn State goes up 14-0 off of 2 pick sixes, and I'm not going to take away credit for them, capitalizing off of pick sixes, but those were horrible passes by Jennings, horrible passes.
It wasn't great plays. It wasn't a great play by the defense. He threw it right to him.
Oh, it was. If you dropped it, like you getting laughed out the building by your own fan base, probably. It was that easy. But it shows that on the road in a big game where you're overmatched, you have to start quickly and you have to execute well. That first drive where they have the ball 4th and 1, he rolls out to the right. The guy is open. The tight end is open, but he easily can get the first down. You live to play another 4 sets of downs. You never know what's going to happen. He throws the ball. Safety makes a really good play, knocks the ball loose. That was the first domino that fell against SMU that ended up being a lot bigger problems down the stretch. I think you go down right there, you get that first down. If you score a touchdown and start 7-0, I think maybe you settle some nerves. Everybody takes a deep breath like, hey, these guys put their pants on one leg at a time. Like, we're in their building. Maybe we take a little air out of the building. You just never know. But when they made that stop, it's like they lit a fire under that stadium, and it never calmed down. Yeah, the second quarter, right? The end of the game, you're looking at 38-10 win, right? Like the problem with the SMU was that it was a legitimate garbage time touchdown. So it makes the game look closer than what it really was. But second quarter, Penn State just opens up on them. Really in the run game too. Didn't even have to do a lot of passing, really. Just run game, just gashing them for chunk plays and touchdowns there. It literally just disgusting play, really. Definitely felt like they were unprepared or shouldn't have been there. But this is what the people wanted. And this is what the powers that be wanted. So, I don't know.
So what happens when casuals make decisions?
Yeah, you're not necessarily wrong. You're not necessarily wrong there. They didn't even score till the second half, so they got shut out. So you're 28-0 at half. Like, it was just, it's not good. It's not good.
Pass the controller.
I think the biggest takeaway from these games is that the deserved it versus the best teams argument is glaring at this point. I don't think it's an argument that either Ole Miss, South Carolina, or Alabama probably wins all of those first-round games outside of Ohio State. I think, I've been on record all year long. I think Ohio State's the most talented team in the whole bunch. But I think Vegas would have had Alabama, Ole Miss, or South Carolina favored in all the rest of those games.
It was very possible. What the crazy thing is, like I said, 2 pick sixes here, but offensively, it's not like Penn State was really lighting the world on fire. They had 325 total yards, right? Drew Aller goes 13 for 22, goes for 127 yards, no touchdowns, gets sacked 3 times.
That's some Kirk Cousins stuff.
Yeah, now, I mean, to be fair, Penn State, obviously, their scoring comes from the run game, right? You got Katron Allen with 2 touchdowns, I think 70 yards. Nick Singleton, 90 yards and a touchdown. It's just one of those things where they just powered their way, ran the ball, won the game, just dominated, right? Didn't have to show much, but at the same time, what they did put out there, I didn't like from Drew Aller. I thought he was inconsistent. Like his incompletions were not good incompletions. I thought.
I guess that to me, what this shows you, and something that people forget as the years go on, and as Penn State has 10-2 seasons, or Notre Dame has 11-1 seasons, and different things. There's levels to this shit, and that's just point blank. Period. Like, is Penn State year in and year out going to compete for national championships? No. But what he's built there is good enough to beat teams like SMU, to beat teams like Indiana. Same thing with Marcus Freeman's built at Notre Dame. I mean, there are just levels to it. And at some point, I think that's what the first round kind of showed you, that if you give a hot team a chance to play against better players, if you can't start hot, you're just out Jimmy and Jode. And that's what happened to SMU. I mean, you're talking about a team that a year ago was a group of 5 team, and they just because you slap an ACC patch on their chest this year doesn't mean they're not still a group of 5 team. It's going to take 4 recruiting cycles to have legitimate D1 players all over the field. Now, they're really good. They won the ACC, but I guess we all know here that I would say that probably they didn't win the ACC. They had the best record in the regular season, but probably the weakest conference.
I don't even think it's close, honestly. I don't even think it's close. I think ACC was just that bad this season. And the crazy thing is, right, like you're looking at Miami, and, Miami was a surefire lock into the playoffs, and then they get beat by Syracuse. Like, you gotta take care of business in the regular season. Like, after this right here, it makes me wonder if Miami would have been worthy to go in, but apparently the committee saw them as just below Bama. So it's like, you can make cases or whatever, right? Because they were still a 2-loss team, but at the same time, like, their defense wasn't really stopping much. But I think it would have been a better game. But coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? You got the Bamas, you got the Ole Miss, you got South Carolina, Miami. All of them are bitching because they're not crying. They're not in the club. Can't get in. So, yeah. Let's move on. Let's stay in the ACC. Texas dumps Clemson 38-24 in DKR. To me, I thought this was a solid matchup. I think Clemson was just overpowered defensively. Texas ran on them, man. Texas just ran on them. What do y'all's takeaways on that?
Start us off, Dan.
I thought Clemson had a chance to be a little bit competitive. I didn't think that they were as deep. And that's one of the things that you go back and you look at Clemson, their inability to land people in the transfer portal, their unwillingness to land people in the transfer portal up until this point now. We see Dabo. I think this game really woke Dabo up to the fact that he's got to bolster that roster. Because when he had it humming, he had generational quarterbacks and he also had top recruiting classes. And he hasn't had that of late. They're a good football team. I'm not going to say they're not a good football team. I think it would be unfair to say Clemson's a bad football team. They're not a bad football team. They're just not, like Kobe said, there are levels of this shit. And there's 100% levels to it. And Clemson, a good football team, but not as well constructed as Texas. And at the end of the day, Texas just out-athleted them. And they had more depth. And they were able to continue to keep firing, and Clemson couldn't. They did kind of make it a game for a little while there, but just Texas was so much better in the long run, and they have so many more weapons, and they had so many more opportunities to be successful than Clemson did. And I will say this, though, Cade Klubnik played really well. That's probably as well as he's ever played while he's been at Clemson.
He really came on strong in this season. Last year was not good at all. He really bounced back to me.
I wouldn't necessarily say the season, but I would say this particular game. I mean, and I think that was the elixir. Get him back in his home state, in a stadium that he's played in before, and I thought he played really well. You can't blame the loss on Cade Klubnik.
Yeah, I want to get some stats here. I think this loss was on defense, and I'll explain why once you hear these stats. Rushing was it was insane. So Texas ran for 292 yards, and if you look at the individual stats, it gets kind of nasty. So Jaden Blue, 14 attempts, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaging 10.4 yards per tote on that. So you're basically literally every touch was getting a first down. And then Wisner, 15 attempts, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. I think this game was dictated in the trenches, and it shows right there. Just not being able to stop Texas running whatsoever. Just not at all. I mean, like you said, though, Klubnik did have a really good game, I thought. 26 for 43, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick, gets sacked. But I think Maffa, not really doing much, probably stung a little bit as well. Didn't really have a rushing game. Texas stopped the rush and their rushing attack, Clemson's rushing attack. And again, I think Texas's ability to run the football, limiting Clemson to, do that right there, I think was ultimately the game decided.
Well, part of that is Maffa was trying to play with a separated shoulder. I mean, that's not.
Yeah, that never helps anything either. Didn't really have an answer. Didn't really have an answer for it. As a backup. Like it's Phil Maffa and then kind of nobody. Like they have Adam Randall running at running back at times, trying to get him the ball.
Yeah, I think that, like you're saying, I think the 2 places I can point to and the 2 places anybody can point to is second level run defenders killed Clemson. I mean, the ability to tackle the runner, get him on the ground, even if it's a gain of 15, get him on the ground, live to play another play. But then I think up front, Clemson O-line versus Texas. I think that those were the 2 weakest points that kind of showed themselves as late as the game went on later and later. Like, I think they had some success running the ball early with Maffa or without. And then, I thought some of the play calling down inside the red zone when you had to have it there on basically goal to go from the 2. I don't know, coming out of the timeout, we're running kind of like quarterback power, right? And then we basically just turn around and hand the ball off on like a outside dive play on 4th and goal. Quarterback's pretty mobile. I'd like to maybe see him have some kind of passing option to a tight end off that. But to me, the inability for them to set an edge and tackle a guy and the inability to kind of move bodies out of the way when you needed to, those are the 2 places where you lost the game.
Yeah. Dan, any final thoughts on that before we move on to the next matchup?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Texas handled business. I think showed their defense was very stout. Gave up more passing than I expected. Honestly, that first drive, though, Clemson had a perfectly scripted first drive. Really did. Outside of that, it just started to get kind of nasty. Like I said, chunk play after chunk play after chunk play on the ground. Texas just running all over them. And I think that kind of just set the tone for the remainder of the game there. But yeah, that's the Clemson and Texas matchup. We move on to arguably the most eventful matchup, and that is Tennessee going up to quote-unquote Neyland North to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State absolutely puts belt to ass on Heupel in Tennessee, 42-17. This wasn't even close. Me personally, I got to hate watch this. It was hilarious because it's Tennessee. And all week, all leading up to this matchup, Tennessee folks are just, yeah. Tennessee takeover. But Ohio State just dominates you. Completely different style of play than what you saw against them in Michigan, right? Completely different. And I think I got carried away with that as well. I thought that Ohio State just didn't look good. Yeah, Tennessee made them look like world beaters, made them look like true title contenders. Thanks, Tennessee. Dan, Kobe, whoever wants to go first, give us your thoughts on that game.
Yeah, I think 2 things. One, quarterback for Ohio State, he made all the throws at the beginning of the game. First 2 quarters, every throw he threw, it had good touch. It was in the right ball placement. It was very catchable. It was in a place where it wasn't easily defendable. And then their receivers made big plays. And on the road at night, all of a sudden you look up and you're down 14-0. And that is a daunting task for even a really good team. And unfortunately for Tennessee, they weren't that really good team. I felt bad watching it for Nico. I think the guy is a solid quarterback. Man played his nuts off. I mean, talking about the first drive of the game, they crack your helmet. I mean, just the level of mental intimidation that is. I mean, I played football for 13 years. I don't know if I ever saw a helmet get cracked like that on play. It just is one of those things that he did exactly what we kind of talked about they wouldn't want to do with Arch Manning at Texas when they played us. And that is the quarterback run was their only form of consistent offense all night. When they had to have 3 yards, it had to be Nico going to get it. And that's a tough ask for a guy that's supposed to be your, for lack of a better term, franchise quarterback for the next year or two possibly. So I was, Sampson being hurt and that lingering didn't help them establish a run game, but Ohio State was out to prove a point, and a point was proven for sure.
Fucking for real.
Coming into the game, I thought this was going to be the most competitive game out of the entire slate. I thought that Tennessee could go up there with Sampson on the run with the running game and make it a competitive game. Without Sampson in the game, they became so one-dimensional that it was laughable. And I think everybody assumed that Ohio State would play better. I think that when you come off of a loss as disappointing as the Michigan loss was, whether they want to say it was or wasn't or whatever, they had bigger goals. Yeah. I got you. Well, this was an opportunity this year to really put belt to ass to Michigan and really atone for those 3 losses in a row that they had. I thought that Ohio State was going to embarrass Michigan. Well, when they didn't, coming into the game, I knew that they were going to play better. Just they had to play better. And like I said, I've said all year long, this is the most talented team in the country. They just hadn't played up to that talent level. Well, they absolutely beat the dog mess out of Tennessee. And I mean, it was at all levels of that defense. They were hitting hard. They were playing fast. They were getting their hands on balls. They were disrupting play in the backfield. Ohio State defensively looked like a completely different team than they were against Michigan. They were flying around. And like you said, Tennessee made them look like the best team in the country. And I'm not saying that they may not be. I'm just saying they hadn't looked like that all year long, and they sure as hell did this weekend. And Tennessee got that belt to ass big time. And I mean, listen, when you're going to go play a talented team, don't talk shit the entire week. I mean, that's the dumbest thing you could possibly do. I mean, you take a team that's already kind of motivated to play better, and then you really piss them off. That's the dumbest shit you could possibly do. And Tennessee got everything they deserved.
The best part about it is you would think they've been here, but it's been since 98. So I understand. I'll give them a pass for it. They forgot what it's like.
I think just speaking on some things too, one of the most exciting things that's kind of different this year compared to the trend of playoff teams and playoffs in the past is just think about how many top end defenses we have in the playoffs this year compared to years past. I mean, like you're saying, Ohio State is one of the best statistical defenses in all of football. Oregon's one of the best statistical defenses in all of football. Penn State has played unbelievably well on defense. Georgia is very tough against the run on defense. Notre Dame looked really good on defense the other night against Indiana, but they have a defensive-minded head coach. They're going to be a good defensive team. Texas, the best statistical defense in the country. For all the people that, the LSU, the 2019 LSUs, the 2020 Alabamas that were winning things, it is championships are running through defenses this year.
Yeah, I think I'm going to read this one here. Mr. Bucknuts, Ohio State fan, has found the show saying, dumb Ryan Day game plan. Bucks know we are a throw first team from here on out. Oregon's next. And honestly, listen, when you look at the statistics on this game, that is honestly what it showed, right? Because they looked like one of the arguably the most talented teams. Dan, you said it. That this game proved they have the capability and the potential to be one of the best, most talented teams in the country, right? Will Howard goes 24 for 29, only incompletion, 5 incompletions, 311 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. And you had Travion Henderson running for 8 yards a carry, 10 rushes, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith finally had that moment in the biggest game of his career, arguably, because it's the playoffs. 6 catches, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. Why in the absolute hell would Tennessee try to let the DB play one-on-one?
Because they have 5 other wide receivers that are just as good. And Buka, I mean, listen, Ohio State is loaded at wide receiver.
Oh,
if you're going to pick but the one player for me that I'm a little bit disappointed in with Ohio State is Judkins. Like, I thought him going to Ohio State, the kid would have been a Heisman Trophy contender. And he just, for whatever reason, and I'm not an Ohio State fan, so I haven't followed them week to week, and maybe there is a reasonable explanation why he's not a bigger part of the offense, but that guy is insanely talented. I know Henderson is insanely talented too, so I'm not taking anything away from him.
You got Henderson, and I think it's Henderson and Judkins, but Will Howard actually, crazy thing is, Will Howard ran for more yards than Quinshawn on 5 carries. I mean, listen, it's a two-headed back, honestly, two-headed backfield with Judkins and Travion there. But the offensively, right, like Bucknuts in the comments is saying Jeremiah, Tate, Nemeka, Buka, the best receivers are all going to play on Sundays. That's a fact. They're all loaded. Dan, you said it. It was just interesting for me to see, to know just how good Jeremiah Smith is, for them to have to play one-on-one coverage. Dude, there's so many Tennessee fans that I heard all season still talking about their DBs clamping stuff down. Buddy, that was far from the truth Saturday night. Far from it. But even then, even going into this game, I thought that Tennessee's defensive front could kind of create havoc and make life kind of hard for Will Howard. Nope.
Didn't happen.
Not at all. Surprise, surprise. Your best player, James Pierce, didn't really do much at all. Another game, another big game. Not much happening on defense. So, yeah. Gotta love that, right? James Pierce, 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. No sacks. That's when it comes to the playoffs, you've got to have better performances from your star players. And that's just not going to cut it. Just won't cut it. Other than that, I'd love to hear a Tennessee fan come in and explain something. But even then, I will say Dylan Sampson not playing, however the case was, shows just how one-dimensional Tennessee is offensively.
Yeah, I think
I want to come.
Go ahead.
I want to comment on that most recent comment. Will Howard is a beast and he's underrated. He played really well. I will tell you that Will Howard has been kind of the biggest question mark on your team all season long. I would maybe pump my brakes on that a little bit. Maybe we're about to see the very best version of him in the playoffs. And if that's the case,
that is very possible.
Yeah, but up to this point, I think a lot of people, their biggest question about Ohio State was, can their quarterback get it done under pressure? So Will Howard stepped up to the plate and he did a great job in this particular game. But I wouldn't go as far as to say he's an absolute beast just yet. Let's see how this.
I think you need to see more consistent good play. Like
right.
if you can replicate this style of performance
100%
against Oregon, then I'm not going to question that. Like I would probably agree with you. He's definitely legit at that point. Not saying he's not. Like the first matchup against Oregon, that was a real good game. A really good game. Came down to some weird shit to end the game, nonetheless.
I mean, I guess it was a 1-point loss on the road. I think that's what people forget about that game. I mean,
yeah, right.
It's going to be at a neutral site at the Rose Bowl. Different kind of atmosphere.
Different, I was going to say different aura to it, if you will.
Yeah, so it'll be cool though. Like you're saying, old school Rose Bowl, old Pac-12 versus Big Ten matchup.
It's a traditional bowl game for a playoff game, which has kind of got that cool historical feel to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think Tennessee, we kind of talked about it, with Dan. It just is one of those things that the offense that Heupel runs it has to have top end speed over the top to soften up boxes to be able to run the ball. And this year they've been able to run the ball with a lot of great success. And you know, in years that Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter and people like that aren't having the years they're having, I think Dylan Sampson has a kind of year that you talk about for a long time. I mean,
Doak Walker at least, maybe even Heisman finalist. Yeah.
Like you're saying, I mean, the guy had 20-plus touchdowns on the ground in the SEC. It's kind of just unbelievable. It's one of those things that they're got to go out and they're going to have to add some speed in the portal. You know, I think that's their biggest adjustment next year is that they have got to have a wide receiver one that isn't Squirrel White, because I think they have some guys that can help them and hurt you. You know, I think Brew McCoy was a possession receiver for them.
Dante Thornton went out this game too, right? Dante Thornton was the one. I thought lead up to this game, I thought Dante would be the one to kind of really help, you know, push vertically. Yeah. And with him and Sampson being out really just shows you how much depth and experience they're lacking. It's not explosive at all. I mean, I will say this. I'm going to give Nico credit because what I did see was that dude was fighting his ass off for every yard that he ran for and got 2 touchdowns off of it. But outside of that, it was just an abysmal performance. It really was. Like, you start to get – like, first quarter's over and you feel like it's 21-0. You're like, holy shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't expecting that kind of start, and it just didn't get any better. But
It could have easily been 28-0. And Kobe and I have a minor disagreement. He has the foot being down. I think that foot might have been coming up. But either way, there was a questionable interception to the back of the end zone. I don't think it was 100% definitive one way or the other. I think if that's called incomplete on the field, I think it stays incomplete. If it's called interception on the field, it stays interception. But, you know, I mean, that game could have been even worse is my point. Yeah, because that was just a probably one of the very few mistakes that Will Howard made all night long. And I don't know that it was necessarily a bad mistake because Jeremiah Smith almost made a hell of a catch. I mean, I don't know if you.
It was more of a good play by the DB for Tennessee than it was a bad decision. Almost. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, he almost made a one-handed catch in the back of the freaking end zone. That was You're right, Bucknuts. Again, not an Ohio State fan, so I'm not going to be an apologist for him. But you're right. That kid, whoever was the front side defender, absolutely ran through Jeremiah Smith. But still, Smith almost made like an absolutely freaking ridiculous catch.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, I guess for me, we talk about Ohio State offense all the time, but really, if you look at what Ohio State did defensively, I think is the key too. Right? They literally, and again, we're not Tennessee fans, we're not Ohio State fans. I got to watch the hell out of this game, and it was fun for me. So I got to sit back and just enjoy either one of y'all were losing, what I would have been having fun with it. But Tennessee took the L, so we get to laugh at the Volunteers. It's okay.
Well, and I got to see my boy Caleb Downs do good. And if you don't know, Caleb played football with my son in high school. So, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so, again, defensively, their ability just to whip Tennessee's ass in the trenches with what is arguably an experienced Tennessee front offensively really sealed the deal there too. Limited any sort of real running game. Didn't give Nico time to pass. I mean, Nico ended up with 104 yards of passing, 104 passing yards compared to Jeremiah Smith, 103 receiving yards off 6 catches. Not good. Not good at all. Bugnuts talks about cracking Nico's helmet. I heard part of that was cold too. I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but I've heard, didn't Pat Mahomes crack a helmet because it was so cold one time?
Yeah, they did. They brought that up when it happened.
Okay. I don't know if it was cold enough to do that, but I mean, I would assume it was probably a physical game.
I think it was 22 degrees, wasn't it?
Maybe.
It was cold.
Yeah. By the way, before we move on, Kobe, you played. Explain to me the stupidity that I saw, this fake toughness from Tennessee going out shirtless pregame. Look oiled up. Look like a Diddy
fake
party.
Tough.
Seriously. What was that? Please, what was that?
Yeah, like you're saying, trying to get you guys kind of juiced on the road. I don't know. That's not the way I would do it. I don't have the pleasure of running a Division I football program. I guess when you have a top 12 team, you get to decide how things kind of run. But it was interesting to say the least. Kind of remind me of like a Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. I just don't think there's a real reason. Again, like you're saying, is there a real reason to poke the bear? You know what I mean? Like you're already going to Ohio State on the road. They're fired up, and you kind of go out there and have everybody work out and do their band stretches without a shirt on. It's like, put a shirt on, fellas. Nobody wants to see that shit.
I just thought it was weak, man. I thought it was just more corny and weak than it was any kind of show of toughness. Like I'm scared of we ain't scared of the cold. Be smart. Like, who you trying to impress? Like, who you trying to intimidate? That ain't how you intimidate nobody. It didn't really. I don't know. I mean, listen, I've been up to PA. It's probably the farthest I've been, but
it reminded me of Michigan when we played them a couple years ago when they wore the like run the damn ball shirts or whatever the shirts were that they
some stupid shit. Yeah.
The O-line was talking about winning the Joe Moore.
Oh yeah, that was before they played us and we beat the shit out of them. Yeah. Finding some. Hold on, wait a minute. We're getting some Penn State fans in here. We are football unrivaled. 38-13 Nittany Lions roll in the Fiesta Bowl. Yeah, I think you're looking at some good matchups in these next ones. Are we done with Tennessee?
We're done with Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee. I can't take Tennessee serious or their fans. 40. All right, Bucknuts. If you're still in here, did you go to the game? And if so, can you confirm? There was a lot of Tennessee fans. Can you confirm that? Because it looked like it. But regardless, your fans are delusional. They're delusional. Let's be honest. The team's good, but it's not that good, and it shows. They are a ways away from really being a title contender, and I think going to Ohio State showed them that. But that's just me. Okay, so Bucknuts did confirm that he was not at the game, but it was about 30,000. Dude, the crazy part is this is how crazy the Tennessee fans were. Like finding out the code to get the tickets and everything and all that stuff. Talk about the Tennessee takeover. Went on Apple Maps and changed Neyland North, obviously. Changed or put a little pin in the middle of the field. Did y'all see that? Put a pin in the middle of the field so where the Tennessee flag's getting planted. I'm telling you, Dan, you brought this up. Talking reckless to then get your shit pushed in. Couldn't have happened to a better fan base, man. Couldn't have happened to a better fan base. Congrats to Ohio State on that. Yeah. All right. Move on to the final one. Happened Friday. Indiana goes into South Bend, gets embarrassed in what doesn't sound like a bad score, but if you watch the game, you would understand. Notre Dame beats Indiana 27-17, and it honestly really wasn't that close. Really wasn't close either. Yeah. Who wants to start us out on this one?
Listen, I think Notre Dame, Indiana was the most outmatched or overmatched game of the entire weekend. Notre Dame, all right, so first of all, Notre Dame is a cathedral. It is probably the most beautiful place I've ever seen a football game in my life. I've seen about 8 or 9 football games at Notre Dame Stadium. And when it gets cold, it gets cold. But there's just something about that place. That place was electric. The fans showed up. They were loud. And then the football team was motivated to play. Indiana had no chance in that game whatsoever. And, for anybody that wants to say that, Indiana scored touchdowns, blah, 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 Freeman had pulled everybody. Like, go look at the numbers on the jerseys. There was not a clean jersey. There was not a dirty jersey in the secondary. They were all new guys. And Notre Dame completely steamrolled Indiana. And, I think one of the biggest things that you have to give Notre Dame credit for is doing what they were supposed to do. And that is hard. And, Harrison liked to joke and kid around saying that the most Notre Dame thing would have been for them to lose at home to Indiana, but they just weren't going to do that. Kobe, I mean, at no point in that game, not even for 1 second, did it ever in your eyes look like Indiana had a legitimate shot to win that football game at any point?
This shit was over before the fucking whistle blew. Let's be honest.
Like you're saying, again, and we've harped on it, it's what makes it so difficult to enjoy this first round of the playoffs, I think, a little bit as a fan of another team watching. Obviously, if you're an Ohio State fan, if you're a Penn State fan, if you're a Notre Dame fan, if you're a Texas fan, had a great weekend. You watch your team go out and dominate. You watch your team go out and get the job done. And that's a really good feeling for a lot of those teams too that, let's just say Texas, you're 11-1 in regular season. You lose in the SEC championship. You're kind of backs against the wall. You could easily come out flat. Penn State, very similar, 11-1 regular season, kind of lose a pretty tight game with Oregon in Big Ten championship game. You come home, you handle business. Ohio State, last time out, lost to Michigan. You come out, you also handle business in a very convincing way. And then this game with Notre Dame. Honestly, for Notre Dame fans, you've been the laughing stock of big game chokes, in the past couple of years. I think that's really changed a lot with Freeman as the head coach. To me, they look completely different in big games than they did under Brian Kelly. So a huge, huge check mark. And I think that they won that trade with LSU where you send him down there, let him enjoy his retirement job in the state of Louisiana, promote Marcus Freeman, let him be the head coach. I think they're in a much better place than they were even 4 years ago. But I agree. I think this Indiana game just kind of showed you again. There are levels to it. Signetti's a feel-good story, but they were a product of a horrible schedule. They dodged a lot of key contenders in the conference. And at some point, I think that's going to be the biggest thing going forward in these super conferences is there going to be years where teams aren't having to play the other top teams in the conference. And it's going to lead to these schedules or records that look really good, but in reality, they haven't played anybody. And I think that's tough because back in the day, it's part of the reason we came to the BCS style. It's the whole reason, it first began. Back in the day, the way you won a national championship is your schedule lined up for it to be kind of easy this year. You were pretty healthy. You go 12-0 and you play in a decent bowl game against a decent opponent. You win it and you're named national champion. That's the different thing. So.
Hello.
No,
but no, in all seriousness, so I want to look at this right here. Overall, I think it was Notre Dame's defense really what stood out to me the most. I think you've got, I say that, but I want to explain it first. Offensively, it really wasn't a ton of just like lighting the world on fire, right? It was efficiency, right? I mean, what you have Jeremiah Love run for, I think, a 108, but he had a 98-yard touchdown run, that was a thing of beauty too. One play, 98 yards, and boy, talk about movement. Huge lane off that run right there. But outside of that, I think he hurdled somebody and tweaked something. So I don't necessarily know what was going on there, but he only had 8 attempts. So I think something had to have happened. But yeah, outside of that run, he kind of limited a little bit. But yeah, we'll see. But I did think it was a good game though too. I think just Indiana being outmatched overall.
Well, hold on.
Okay, so I will say this. Irish for Life in the comments said Love had the flu. He's fine. Okay. I was wondering why he didn't get a lot of run. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what Kevin Chandler was fussing about. We're not even talking about Penn State.
I mean,
we gave Penn State plenty of credit during our segment on Penn State. I have no idea what he's upset about. All right.
Congrats on beating
Felicia.
SMU for sure. No, seriously, I thought Abdul Carter looked really good. That defense looked really good. force a lot of stuff, but hey, it is what it is. We move on. But yeah, no, I guess that is good to know. Our Notre Dame did take some key injuries too. Was it Mills? I think it is. That's a big
One of the
big
captains.
loss. Yeah, 99, I think it was. I think he's out for our matchup.
He's out for the season.
Yeah, and I think that's a big deal.
It was a big deal to Marcus Freeman. He had no friggin' idea. At the end of the game, they asked him about it. He's like, "Oh, he could have went back in, but we had a big lead." And then after the game, they're like, "Yeah, no, he's out for the season." And I can only imagine how that went in a closed door. He's probably like, "What the shit? Like, come on, guys! You told me he was gonna be all right."
Yeah. So to put more
a huge deal. That's 100% a huge deal, especially when Georgia is good up front, runs the ball extremely well. Have it being down, and he made mention. Irish for Life said, they're down 4 defensive linemen. I know that one of them, Cole Mullins, never even got to play this season. He's a Mill Creek kid.
They're also missing their starting corner too.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think you look at Notre Dame. This all to me falls back on Cignetti, and I felt like his play calling and his game plan was just made no sense. All they did was try to throw, back shoulder fades and slants. There was no attempt to really design up and call man beaters, right? Mesh concepts. You didn't really see that, and that's something with Indiana's got to do. And it made no sense why they didn't do that, right? It also didn't help that they couldn't run the ball effectively either. And I said that before the matchups. If they can't run the ball effectively, it's a long day, and it showed. I
can't remember. One of the two of them said it in the chat earlier. I mean, Cignetti, to be coach of the year, just got outcoached from the flip of the coin. He was outcoached, and I think it was an
out coaching and just out rostered. Everything. I think Notre Dame was just better in all facets.
Like you're saying, though, when you've had the time to prepare, though, like you've had more than a week. You didn't have to have you didn't play a game last week. To me, you've had a good enough opportunity to watch film and say, these are the places they're better than us at, and this is how we're going to exploit these weaknesses that we have. And to me, they didn't do that. Or if they did, it was the wrong idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I just look back on it too, though, right? Like I said, the Irish were really, really aggressive defensively, really aggressive. We've kind of seen that Notre Dame loves to put like a cover one man and just put 6 in the box, maybe even 7 at times, and just trust their secondary to cover your guys, and that's exactly what they did because their linebackers. Their safeties had no worry whatsoever, at least from what I've seen, of hitting over the top. There was not a fear at all for that. And it allowed them to come down awfully fast. And with really with reckless abandonment, not even having to worry about getting hit over the top. And that's something that, again, I think coaching and schematics, if you game plan the right way, you got to attack that shit, but you didn't even try. You just kept throwing slants and tight window throws, and that's not how you win, especially when you have Indiana's roster. Just not how you win.
I think the one thing that would give Notre Dame a little bit of problem is a team with like in Ohio State that has a bunch of really fast and really talented wide receivers. That's not necessarily the calling card of Georgia. So I think this is going to be a good old-fashioned, like, in the trenches, run the football, just man ball, right? Like who?
I think another thing too is if you're looking at this right here, I just still laugh at Cignetti not trying to attack any kind of aggression. Like
he didn't have the personnel.
No, I get that. I'm just saying it's just to me at least try to put forth the effort to. Didn't even try. And what it seemed like, you didn't even try. But I think
your coach knows his personnel.
Hang the banner, take your trophy. See you next year, coach. I think in a couple of years he'll regret kind of hitching his horse this season to the long-term deal at Indiana. I think at some point you got to be smart enough to know, kind of like James Franklin was, here is the highest I'm ever going to be able to get Vanderbilt. Here's the highest I'm ever going to be able to get Indiana. If I exceed that expectation in a year, I got to get out of Dodge.
Yeah, I think another thing too with these matchups, I got to give credit to their defense. Again, I wasn't really like blown away by Notre Dame's offense. I still feel like when it comes to playing Georgia, Riley Leonard's going to have to do more than what he did against Indiana. I think that's kind of a given. But I will say that it should kind of, to me, it seems like the MO for them just been consistently good, right? Throwing up Riley Leonard threw 201 yards, a touchdown, a pick, got sacked a couple times, right? Ran for 11 attempts for 30 yards, got a touchdown off of that. Just, it's nothing mind-blowing, but it's efficient. It gets the job done, especially when you got your defense playing good as well. So, again, I'm going to give them the shout out. I'll just give them credit for that. I will say this, though. Hey, Pup. I will say, though, Signetti, nobody's going to Google you anymore because we saw what you did on College Game Day. You can't sit there and say top 25 teams would beat the shit out of them because who'd you beat that was in the top 25? Who?
Illinois. That was it. They ain't in the top 25 now.
No, wrong. Yeah, come on, man. That to me that was just like you just put your foot in your mouth, and then obviously as soon as they get their ass beat.
Can we get Shane Gillis to replace Lee Corso permanently on
College
Game Day?
Please.
That's hilarious. My favorite part of the whole thing, though, not the Shane Gillis part, but the Nick Saban told Signetti, he goes, I'll tell you one thing you didn't get from me, all that shit you're talking.
Again, it goes back to it, though, man.
I am blown away at how much Nick Saban cusses on air.
I'm okay with it.
He can't help himself.
No, he can't.
I mean, you just can't at some point. Like
you're sitting beside You're sitting beside Pat McAfee, and no one's saving.
Who, to be fair, I mean, I also get sick and tired of how much Pat McAfee cusses, just like for no reason. At least Nick's is typically when he is like fired up, deep into conversation, and it's just like Coach Saban comes out. Pat does it for clicks and for laughs, and sometimes it just gets old. Like,
I mean, it kind of resembles
Saturday,
what he does on his show. I'm not knocking his show. It's just what he kind of does. It's just what he does.
On Saturday, he's like, "Oh, I was mayor of Cockville." And it's like, all right, man. Like, they're young people watching College Game Day this morning. Like, let's ease it up on the dick talk.
Yeah. So Irish in the comments is saying, why would he be out there doing an interview 2 hours before the game? And to be fair, there's been situations on College Game Day where coaches will go out there and, do interviews or whatever, or even from within the field, right? That's another thing, or on the field, I should say. But most of the coaches that you see don't do and say what he did, and I think that's just a sign of a coach just has got to learn some things. I mean, Dan, you brought it up when Saban said you could tell you didn't learn all that shit talk from me. There's a reason for it. It's literal rat poison right before a game.
There's no reason for it. I mean, there's no benefit to it. I mean, you're 100% right. It's just dumb. There's no reason to do it. Obviously, you want to hype up your team for sure. I get all that,
Mm-hmm.
but like, there's a line that you just don't cross, and there's etiquette, right? There's coaching etiquette. Anybody that's ever coached knows that, like, hey, I want to beat the hell out of everybody I play. But at the same time, you have to show a little bit of respect to your opponent. You can go beat the hell out of them on the field, but just, have a little decency to you.
I guess my thing is too, say everything you want to say when the game's over. Say that, the media doubted you all week. Say that, you've been written off as you don't belong in this playoff, whatever. Like, talk it post game, but again, Tennessee, Indiana, like, there's just no reason to be high on your horse before the game. I mean, it just makes it too easy to be the focus of attention all week. I mean, and that's the last thing you want to be. You want somebody like Notre Dame. If you're Indiana, you were hoping that you stayed quiet. You hope Notre Dame was already looking ahead at Georgia a little bit, and you come in there and you play a shortened game where you control time of possession, you hit a couple big plays, you get a timely turnover, and you walk out of there, 31-24 or 34-24, something where it's not crazy high scoring, and you're able to play your style of game to win. You don't want all of a sudden you talk that shit, and all of a sudden it's like, whoop, we'll focus on Georgia next week. It's like you've got everything we got for 7 days. Just not a great formula.
Yeah, I definitely don't think so. It's funny because Bucknuts is and Bucknuts and Irish are still in here. Indiana runs their mouth too much, never accomplished nothing really in football terms. So he tells them to stay humble. That falls back into everything we just said, for sure. He also said that Indiana fans were the worst. Apparently, Dan, did you go up to South Bend in 2017?
Of course I did.
Okay,
100%.
I just want to make sure that was one of them. Yeah, I think earlier in the earlier one of the comments he mentioned that our fans were great. So keep up the good work there. Let's do this. Let's sum everything back up. So overall takeaways, first round home matchups. Agree that they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, the game sucked, but the
Yes.
fact that they got to play
Correct.
at home was cool.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
I just think that it's going to take a year where a lower seed or a higher seed, I guess, wins one of those games, and that just wasn't the case this year. I mean, it was 4 pretty one-sided victories. So I think anytime you do that, it becomes a snooze fest.
Yeah. I mean, we're only one round in, but I do want to say that I think what would make these playoffs better is the auto buys. Oh, look at Dan. Look at Dirty Dan.
Woo, right there on the sidelines, 50-yard line.
Yeah.
So I actually got that ticket from Notre Dame alumni, one of the hockey players that we know. So that's how I got those tickets. I didn't pay for them. Honest to God, I didn't pay a penny.
He did.
Hey, man,
Possibly.
big money doesn't always mean you paid the big money. It just means maybe you know the big money. You know what I'm saying?
He was a pretty good hockey player for Notre Dame, so that's how I got him.
So we'll read some more comments considering we've got some fans from opposing fan bases that were playing in these first rounds. Bucknuts is saying that he personally wanted to see Ohio State's all gray with scarlet alternates, the ones that we wore against. I guess he loves those. Yeah, and Irish loved the playoff unis that they wore too. Oh, he wore okay, the ones that they wore against Iowa. Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Those gold names on the back of the jersey were extremely hard to read. They looked cool, but they were hard to read. But my grandfather was rolling over in his grave that they had names on the back of their jersey.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, don't say anything Irish, but I think that's a postseason tradition that they do.
No, the hell it's not.
Here's my thing that I guess Irish is going to have to confirm or deny, because I also read that it apparently is some tradition that they do it in the postseason, but I don't think I've ever heard of it ever before until this game. So
the Sugar Bowl when they played Georgia, there was no names on the back of jerseys.
Yeah. I wonder though, when they played Alabama in the national championship. So let us see real quick.
It may be a modern thing that they do.
Maybe it's something under Freeman. I don't. Either way, I'll tell you this though. What the thing, even from a third party perspective, looking at Notre Dame on a Friday night, no one, like you said, Dan.
See, Irish is not that I'm aware of. This is 50 years of Notre Dame's fandom speaking. So, and I could tell when my grandfather played at Notre Dame, they didn't have numbers on the jersey. So
in the Natty versus Bama, they have names on the back of them. So that was 2012.
Okay, so something happened where in the postseason they do something like that.
They definitely do. Here's another picture of them playing the Rose Bowl versus Alabama a couple years ago, and you can see Ian Book's name on the back of his jersey.
Okay, so
it's a modern thing though. That is not a history.
Yeah. But I mean, 2012 though. I mean, it's at least been going on 12 years. I kind of thought that I was with him. I thought it might have been a Marcus Freeman tradition started, but it's at least semi been going on.
I'll tell you what, though, man. Overall, though, just looking at, like, again, what we saw on the football field is one thing. The pageantry, the environment, just
It's the
beautiful
most
shit,
beautiful
man.
place
Just
to go see a
beautiful.
football game. If you go see one of the early season games before it gets cold, with all the flowers, what is that?
Are you trying to see yourself here? That's
Is
an
there a
old
name
one.
on the jersey?
It's the last name on the jersey in the Natty versus Georgia for the Irish.
I'll be.
Oh,
So
shit.
it is old.
Okay. Either way, so we learned something new.
Why was it such a big talking point?
Because it was just a thing at Notre Dame. You don't put names on the jerseys. It's always been a thing.
Yeah, but I felt like, I don't know. I felt like they talked about so much. I was like, wow, maybe they've never done this before. And in reality, I mean, they've done it now for at least 50 years.
Yeah. I'll say this, though. If I'm being picky, I would have wanted the whiteout at night. Give me a whiteout on a Friday night.
You talking about Penn State?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, they didn't get the fucking pick.
I know that. I'm just saying if I was just being picky, that's all. Dan, I know this. Either way, though, a night whiteout would have been cool to watch. But nonetheless, a whiteout in general is fun to watch on TV anyway. But again, the environments and stuff, that I thought that was cool. Even the Twitter banter from Ohio State and Tennessee leading up to their matchup was fun to look from a third-party perspective. It was hilarious. Bucknuts just now realizing that Tennessee fans are just as bad as Indiana fans. Buddy, they're worse.
Yeah. Let us learn you something on Tennessee fans. Jesus.
Yeah.
All you need to do is go find that one freaking retard that does the rap. You know what I'm talking about? That like
I'm making him at night.
Guy looks like he's a freaking meth addict.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Volkswagen or not. No,
oh my God, that guy's a moron.
Yeah, I'm making him at night, Dad.
That guy's an idiot.
By the way, Dan, I think brought it up. This is the official campaign for Shane Gillis to replace Lee Corso. Thank you.
That was Kobe.
Oh, sorry, Kobe. My bad. I swear I thought it was you for a second. My bad. Either way.
That's something I would say, but
yeah,
Kobe beat me to it.
All right, question. Give me a grade. This will be the last thing of the night. It's kind of random, but we're going to bring it home on this. Since we talked about Shane Gillis, what would your grade be for his joke on Alabama Jones? Or excuse me, yeah, Alabama Jones.
A+. It was elite timing. I mean,
and that was off the cuff. That was not rehearsed.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable.
It was hilarious. Again, you come up with something like that off the rip, man.
Well, the best part is, like you're saying, he's been kind of shit talking the SEC and inherently kind of Nick Saban the whole day, from the field goal kicking competition, like the whole kind of time. His MO has been kind of talking his talk, and then he gets up there and you're sitting 2 seats away from the greatest football coach ever. It's hard not to just be like, I'm so sorry. And he did that, but then also did it in his way of making fun of him. So,
I mean, he's a comedian. We need that laugh. Let's be serious. We need that laugh. Yeah, Tennessee fans had not one thing to cheer for all game. Yeah, thank you, Ohio State, for that.
Nobody on the show is upset about it.
Not at all. 1998 forever and always. I don't see that changing back. But yeah, with that being said, that's all we've got. By the way, the show is brought to you by our friends over at Alumni Hall. You shop in Athens. They are in Athens, Oconee Connector. Go there, mention the show in stores, get 10% off your order. Get ready for the Sugar Bowl on the way out, going down to New Orleans. Stop by the store, mention us, get 10% off your order. Or if you can't make it, go to dgdpodcast.com/alumni hall, and 8% will go to the Classic City Collective. dgdpodcast.com/alumni hall. Guys, we're going to do the final. Anybody have any final words before we wrap this thing up and send everybody off?
Got to get the best 12.
I'll take that. I'll take it.
Pick the women in your life carefully.
Yeah, there's a
I'm
reason.
not even sure where to go with that, but yeah, you ain't wrong.
I mean, to be fair, there's a reason why Tennessee wears that orange. Y'all have heard the story, right? Well, we'll tell you this. Let's just say this. There's for the Irish fans, for the Buckeyes fans that may not understand why they wear the color orange that they do. They wear the orange to the game on Saturday, go hunting with it on Sunday, and then pick up trash with it on Monday. So just let them know when you post in their receipts, by the way. Just let them know. Hope they had a good day picking up trash this morning. I'm not wrong. But other than that, boys, I think it's time to wrap this thing up. Everybody have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, right? We'll do Christmas, but everybody does their own thing. Hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. Dan, hope Santa comes and gives you all the goodies.
Yeah, buddy.
Kobe, you too.
Well, hey, listen, thank you, Bucknuts and Irish, for jumping in here in the chat. We've had fun talking with you guys, and you guys are playful. We appreciate that. Not everybody that jumps in the chat is a good sport, so we appreciate you guys joining. We'll
take that all the time. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple and Spotify, leave us a rate and review. It's free. It helps us out in all the right ways. Guys, we're off for the rest of the time. We will be back next Monday. We're going to be talking Notre Dame and the Sugar Bowl preview. So get ready for that. That's all we've got. With that being said, have a great Merry Christmas. We will see y'all next time. And go Dogs.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.